Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 341. We're doing our week 5 NFL picks against the spread for the 2021 season. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you and how's your week 4?
I'm doing great. My week 4 is pretty good. I went 10-6 overall, second straight week. Went 6-10, 6-10, 10-6, 10-6 to start the year. So I'm sitting at a cool 500 right now, but we're on the right track. I watched about 3 of the total 16 games from this last week. I was at a wedding on Sunday, so I missed most of the games. So I apologize in advance for not having explicit knowledge of plays that I want to talk about outside of those 3 primetime games, but I feel like we're on the right track. We're doing well, and I feel pretty confident that we're gonna keep moving in that right direction.
Yeah, I just gave you a summary of the Packers-Steelers game. That was probably the most frustrating loss I had last week. Overall, I had a great week. I went 12-4. Unfortunately, just 3-2 in the Super Contest. So somehow, out of the 16 games, I got 4 wrong, and 2 of them were out of the 5 that I put in the Super Contest. So just go figure, right? But still, it was a pretty good week overall. So I'm excited to head into week 5. This is the last week without buys, so it's our last full slate until week 15, which is seems like a long time from now. So we're going to get into these picks. Before we do, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, and visit the merch store in the description. All that would help us out a lot. So this Thursday night, we actually have a good game for once. The Rams at the Seahawks. This line opened up. Rams -1.5. It's been climbing throughout the day. Now it's up to -2.5. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Rams in this one. I like that we're getting it under 3 still, even though the line's climbing. If you just look at the matchup, the Rams have a great passing attack, and the Seahawks defense just isn't very good. They don't have much talent at all. I thought their pass rush would be better than they'd have a lot of guys there that could contribute all together. That's not come together. The secondary hasn't been good. So I have a lot of concerns about how they're going to fare against Matthew Stafford, and they're giving up 444.5 yards per game. That's the worst in the NFL. So the Seahawks can't really stop anyone right now. Russell Wilson will keep them in this game enough, I think, but Matthew Stafford and all the weapons on the Rams offense should be motivated. They were embarrassed by the Cardinals. They had 20 points total. I'm pretty sure one of their touchdowns was a garbage time touchdown too. At least that's what I was told by someone I'm playing against in fantasy, and I benefited from that. So take that for what it's worth. But this, as long as it stays under 3, I'm going to be very much into the Rams here. They've won 6 of the last 8 against the Seahawks. I know trends don't mean that much, but that's been under Sean McVay. They're 6-3 under Sean McVay because they had that one extra meeting in the playoffs. And that playoff meeting, maybe the Seahawks want revenge for it, but I don't think they're built defensively to contain this Rams team enough to get that revenge. So I like the Rams here. I'm going to go on them for a unit or 2. I'll probably lock this in sooner rather than later, just so I can guarantee that it's under 3.
Yeah, it's pretty smart. You have to get this under 3 because the Rams winning by 3 is a likely result of this game. I'm on the Rams as well. So we begin this podcast with an agreement. So the Rams have dominated the Seahawks, like you said, and that was with Jared Goff, and now they have Matthew Stafford. I could buy the revenge angle if the Rams had won last week and they were 4-0 heading into this game, and maybe they took the Seahawks lightly, but they're coming off a loss, like a pretty bad loss. They were blown out at home against Arizona. So I like good teams coming off embarrassing defeats. They tend to bounce back well, especially Sean McVay. I mean, he has a great record coming off a loss. Also, something to consider is that Seattle might be down 2 offensive linemen again. That kind of took me off of them in the Super Contest. I initially was going to pick them, but then I dropped my unit count from 5 to 3 because they were missing 2 offensive linemen, and it early in the game it appeared to affect them. I think their first 5 drives were either 3 and outs or quick punts. They just couldn't get anything going, and eventually they overcame that. But the Rams defense is a lot better than the 49ers defense right now because San Francisco has so many injuries. So I like the Rams to bounce back, especially if Seattle has the injured offensive lineman again. So it's probably going to be a 3-unit play for me. If Seattle's offensive line is healthier, might be a 0-1 unit play. So we'll have to see what the injury report looks like. But I get what you're saying about locking this in, and I think that's pretty smart. But I also want to see the injury report as well. So it's kind of I don't know what to do there. So I'm gonna wait. If I think it's going to get to 3, I'll probably bet the Rams. But I'm just going to wait for the injury report until then. Otherwise.
Yeah, I think locking it in would be the right move just because I still think even if the Seahawks have their full complement of offensive linemen, they'll struggle. I tend to think on shorter weeks, coaches tend to play it more conservatively. Pete Carroll, especially, he's always one that we talk about this a lot. He's always like, oh, yeah, they're going to play. And then they don't play. Like they have this like outward air of confidence, but inward, they're very conservative when bringing people back from injury. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. I'll probably watch this line very closely tomorrow and hope that the injury report comes out just before the line moves to 3 and see if we can grab it then.
Yeah, Chris is asking why the Seattle's offense looked broken. So in week 1, they were on fire, and then the same thing the first half of week 2. And then they started getting offensive line injuries. Their center, Ethan Pocic, has been out for a couple games. And then they lost the right tackle, Brandon Shell. So they've been missing 2 offensive linemen. Their blocking was good at the beginning of the year, and now they have issues with health. But I think once those guys get back healthy, they'll be better offensively. Also, Chris Carson's banged up, Tyler Lockett's banged up, so they have some injuries otherwise. So it's like a couple of issues so far for them. All right, next game. This one's in London. The Jets versus the Falcons. It seems like we export like all the terrible teams to London. Like next week, I think it's Dolphins, Jaguars. I don't know. I feel like the NFL is trying to get people in London to hate football based on what they're sending over there. This game is not going to be. Well, I should say it's going to be competitive, but only because these two teams are not very good. So, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, this is a classic. The NFL probably scheduled this game and was like, all right, well, the Jets are going to have a new quarterback and Atlanta might too. That'll be pretty good. And, the rest of the teams don't look very good. So I have pretty minimal interest in betting this game. It's 2 bad teams playing one another. The Jets are coming off a win over the Titans, so I'm questioning whether or not they're going to be motivated for this one entirely. One of the things I did see was highlights after that game. They were like dumping Gatorade and stuff on Robert Saleh. So, I know it's a big deal. It's the coach getting his first win, but it was kind of like, all right, so you're going to come off this big emotional high right now, travel overseas before your bye week and take on a team that's worse than the one you just beat. So there are some concerns there for me. And I think the Falcons offense will be healthier than the Titans was at receiver. So I think that could give Atlanta an advantage in that area. But at the same time, I look at Atlanta's defense and they're just terrible. So I think the Jets might have a chance to move the ball at will and match them, kind of go blow for blow in this one. Sort of like what we saw Washington do against Atlanta last week. Those two teams just kept trading punches throughout the game. So I don't think this is a game I want to bet at all. So I'm going to take the underdog here. The spread just seems a tiny bit high. So I'm on the Jets here. You could easily convince me to be on the Falcons. I'd recommend get up early and watch this one, see what you can learn about these two teams for the future for after their bye week. But this one's not one that seems like it's going to be fun to bet unless there's some major injury news.
Yeah, if you're on the West Coast, have fun waking up at 6 a.m. to set your fantasy lineups. It's kind of brutal. I don't know why the NFL does this. I don't mind the London games. I just don't get why they have to start at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. I just think that's a big mistake because you're kind of like the West Coast is kind of like screwed by that, Anyway, this line does seem high. I agree with what you said about that. I made this line Falcons -1 just based on power rankings. Not on injuries or anything else. So I was kind of frustrated to see that because I wanted to bet Atlanta for 2 reasons. Like one is what you mentioned before with the Gatorade bath. The Jets won their big game against the Titans after struggling so much. I feel like, backing a bad team off a win is usually a mistake. And I think that based on the line movement in this game, it seems like the public is on the Jets. So I think like the Jets are starting to get some hype with Zach Wilson looking good against the Titans. And this is another good matchup for him. So I don't blame the public for thinking that way. So that's one of the reasons why I was frustrated to see the line so high. The second is that the Jets are missing their starting 2 safeties. Marcus May, he's injured, and then he got into legal trouble with a DUI. Alleged, I think it was alleged, but I'm not sure. And then LaMarcus Joyner is out for the year. So Atlanta should be able to attack the Jets safeties pretty easily with Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, Cordell Patterson suddenly just going nuts. It seems like Atlanta should be able to score easily on the Jets. The Jets will be able to score in Atlanta as well. So I wish this was -1 because I think Falcons winning by 3 is a likely result. I still like Atlanta, though. I'm going to take them. I may not bet this game. If I do, it's going to be for a unit just to maybe keep me awake in the morning. But Otherwise, I don't have much interest in this game.
Yeah, this one is a standalone game, so it'll probably trap me into this one. But yeah, I have no problem with taking Atlanta in this one. This is one that I truly just don't see like that huge of an edge in either category. So I'm just siding with the underdog for that. But one thing I should note though, we've seen underdogs get crushed in London recently. I have a vivid memory, I think a couple years ago, of the Jaguars and Gardner Minshew going as an underdog to London. I forget who they were playing. I think it was the Texans. And I was like, oh, they're going to do well. And they got absolutely pummeled. They lost like 26-3 or something. So, buyer beware on these underdogs overseas. They don't always do as well as you think.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think it benefits the better team, although we don't really know who that is in this matchup. I think it's Atlanta, but maybe not. I like what Andrew's saying. Not sure if the Jets can stop Cordarrelle Patterson. Do you ever imagine in 2021 we'd be saying that? And like, it's kind of true because Patterson has been going nuts. I'd warn you though about Patterson. He only played 23 snaps last week, so he scored 3 touchdowns. I think that was misleading, but I think he could have a big gain or two in this game. Just not really buying him that much in fantasy, but I don't know. Could be wrong.
Yeah, the fact that he's relevant is mind-boggling to me. It's just I can't believe it.
I know, it's insane. All right, next game, we move to the Sunday afternoon games. Dolphins at the Buccaneers. This line opened up Buccaneers -10. It's still -10. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I kind of like the Dolphins in this one. I mean, I don't love the Dolphins as a team. They're one Damian Harris fumble away from being 0-4. But we're looking at this Buccaneers team, and they're coming off of a big win. I know that they didn't play particularly well in that game. They had their share of issues against the Patriots defense, but I don't think they're going to be super, super motivated for this one. They'll think that they can not cruise to victory over the Dolphins, but win pretty easily. But at the same time, you look at the Tampa Bay secondary, they've been awful this year. They're allowing the most passing yards per game in the league at 327.5. And that's not going to get better anytime soon because they're probably going to be without John Murphy Bunting again, their top 3 cornerbacks. I know they signed Richard Sherman. That's going to help them in the long run, but he's still getting up to speed on this defense, and they still don't have much across from him. I mean, Mac Jones was able to throw a lot and pretty successfully on the Tampa Bay defense. So I'm thinking that they're not going to win this one by double digits. The Dolphins have enough weapons to get into that secondary and make Tampa Bay uncomfortable. Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, Jalen Waddle. I know Will Fuller's going to be out. He has a finger injury, but I don't think that they're going to have trouble moving the ball. Like maybe Jacoby Brissett implodes. Maybe they get some extra pressure on Brissett and things don't go well. But I just think Tampa Bay is a little too high for me right now. They have not won by double digits against any team except the Falcons. So I think the Dolphins are better than the Falcons. I think I'm going to go Dolphins +10 for a unit or two here. If Tampa Bay was fully healthy in the secondary, I probably wouldn't share this sentiment if the line remained here. But for now, I don't see a reason to bet Tampa Bay at that number.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. I like the Dolphins even more than you do. The spread is too high, and you kind of have to look at what the Buccaneers have done this year. Yeah, like you said, the only time they really won in a blowout was against Atlanta this year. But remember, that game was close until Matt Ryan threw 2 pick sixes in the same quarter. Now, that could definitely happen. Jacoby Brissett could implode in the second half or something. But if he doesn't, and the Dolphins don't turn the ball over that much, I think they can stay close. But otherwise, Tampa Bay this year, they barely beat Dallas. They barely beat the Patriots, and they got blown out by the Rams. So does that sound like a team that should be favored by 10, especially when they have so many secondary injuries? I just don't really think so. I agree with what you said, the Dolphins having good skill position players to take advantage of Tampa's secondary issues with the injuries. And the Buccaneers could be looking ahead to Thursday night. They play the Eagles. Not that the Eagles are a tough matchup or anything, but they have to prepare for a game in 4 days. And so coming off like what people were saying is the most hyped regular season game ever, they won that game. Brady had a big victory over Belichick. So like, do you think he's going to be focused here? I just don't think so. And also one thing to remember is that Brian Flores used to also coach against Brady, and Belichick, we've seen him We saw him on Sunday night have some tricks for Brady, and Brady kind of struggled a little bit. Like Brian Flores is a great defensive-minded coach too. Granted, he doesn't have the personnel Belichick has now, but he still has some good pieces on defense. So I think they could slow down Brady, and maybe not hold him to 19, but if like hold him to like 24-ish or something like that, that should allow the Dolphins to have a backdoor cover at the very worst against a bad secondary.
Yeah, I think it just makes sense to go with the Dolphins until the Buccaneers secondary gets healthy. Like if they were healthy, I could definitely see Tampa Bay covering this number. But everyone went into that Sunday night game again, and even I on the podcast last week before I changed my pick, I was like, I think the Buccaneers could like tee off against this defense. They just, the Patriots matched up poorly with them on paper, and Mac Jones was going to have to win the game by passing the ball. So I get it. If you look on paper, you might say like, oh, the Dolphins, they're not that great, especially with Brissett at quarterback. But, Tampa Bay secondary is that bad right now. And I think Antoine Winfield Jr. got hurt. I can't remember if you mentioned that. He got hurt in the last week's game. So I don't know if he's 100%. So there's just a lot of stuff going on back there. So on the short week, as you mentioned, I think that going with the Dolphins now, it sounds crazy, but I think it's the right move right now.
Yeah, I think so too. What Richard said is my only concern here. The offensive line of Miami will be overwhelmed. The Miami offensive line was terrible against the Colts. Like Jacoby Brissett had no time. But Tampa's pass rush hasn't been as good as it was last year. Like not nearly as good. Remember in the opener, they couldn't get to Dallas. They couldn't get to Dak Prescott, even though Zach Martin was out. And against Atlanta, it wasn't even that good. Like considering Atlanta's offense line is terrible too. So I'm less concerned about that. If Tampa had the same pass rush as they did last year, I would be very concerned, but they just aren't getting to the quarterback, and maybe that changes late in the year, but I don't think it changes after that big win over the Patriots.
Yeah, the only thing is Brissett has to get rid of the ball quickly. One of his weaknesses over the years has been holding the ball too long. But I think Brian Flores is going to be ready for that and say like, hey, let's get the ball out quickly. Look at what Mac Jones did. Get the ball in your playmaker's hands, and the secondary is not going to be able to do much.
Yeah, agreed. Next game, Eagles at the Panthers. This line opened up Panthers -4. It's down to 3.5. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Panthers here. I know that they just gave up a ton of points to the Cowboys, but before that, their defense had been very, very good. And I think they just went up against a really great Dallas offense and just couldn't quite match up with them. But they did push back late in the game. I don't know if it was garbage time or not, to be completely honest, to make it at least. It was garbage time. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they made it a little closer looking, at least to people who didn't watch the game. So that was a maybe a little bit tricky on my part, but I don't think that the Eagles are that good. They're going to be playing in 4 days, like you just mentioned, for the Buccaneers. So I think the Eagles will be focused on the now, but their defense is just in such bad shape. I think Carolina's going to be able to move the ball on them. You got DJ Moore playing well. I don't think Christian McCaffrey's due back yet, but he might be able to come back. I wouldn't rush him back from a hamstring injury, but they always seem to try to rush him back from injuries, so we'll see what happens there. I just think that 3.5 seems too low for the Panthers. The Panthers, maybe they're not an elite team, but they're definitely better than the Eagles. I think people are going to get tricked a little bit by the Eagles scoring 30 points on the Chiefs. Let's not mince words here. The Chiefs defense is bad. It's very bad. It's one of the worst in the NFL right now. The why is something they're going to have to figure out. But if you look at the Carolina defense, they're much stronger. They're going to be able to get a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts, especially if the Eagles are without 4 offensive linemen again. The Chiefs couldn't take advantage of that. The Panthers, they are built to take advantage of that with Derek Brown, Brian Burns, and if Yetur Gross-Matos plays. So I like Carolina at -3.5. I've got 1 to 3 units written down here, and my bet will depend on how many offensive linemen the Eagles actually have at their disposal.
Yeah, we know they're going to be down 2 offensive linemen at the very minimum, probably 3. Lane Johnson probably returns. He was out last week with a personal issue, so I don't know what that was. Who knows? Like maybe he's out again, but I think they're going to be down 3 offensive linemen. So I'm with you here. I like the Panthers. And I think you're definitely right about people falling in love with the Eagles offense suddenly, like seeing them score 30 points. It's easy to forget that just 6 days before that, they could barely score against the Cowboys, who, Dallas's defense is better this year, but they're not like the 85 Bears or anything. And I don't think they're as good as the Panthers defense either. That by the way, that Panthers Cowboys game was very weird. Like there was garbage time to make that score closer, but the Panthers led at halftime 14-13. So like it wasn't really a blowout either. It was Dallas just had like three big plays in the second half that just got them to 36-14 very quickly, and then the Panthers had to get garbage time. So yeah, it was a weird game, but I think this number is too low. The computer model says this number should be -6. So yeah, as long as the Eagles are down 3 or more offensive linemen, I am definitely going to be on the Panthers for a few units.
Yeah, and from my understanding, again, I did not watch this closely, but Sam Darnold made some decent plays last week. I know he threw 2 picks, but that's more Trayvon Diggs playing well. His emergence under Dan Quinn has been one of the reasons that the Cowboys have been so much better on defense, because they actually have a cornerback who can take away one side of the field. So I think Darnold will be okay against this Eagles defense.
Yeah, Andrew's totally right here. It's the fantasy effect. Like maybe that's why Atlanta's favorite every week, because they have Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts and like all these guys people know. It's definitely the fantasy effect. Like Jalen Hurts had a monster fantasy game. But like I said, 6 days before that, they could barely score against the Cowboys. So it's something to keep in mind. Next game, Saints at the Redskins. This line opened up Saints -1.5. It's up to Saints -2. So who do you like here?
Yeah, this is a game I'm not too crazy about. I know Washington's not playing well on defense right now at all. Like they're totally disjointed. They're like a bottom 5 defense with personnel that everyone thought going into the year would be a top 5 defense, which is just mind-boggling when you have Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio on that team. Even with that said, though, I have Washington listed as my pick here right now. I think that they could slow down the Saints. I mean, Jameis Winston and that offense have not been super effective since that first week against the Packers, when he was super efficient and threw for 5 touchdowns. I know they played well against the Patriots, but last week they struggled to move the ball against the Giants, and they're without 2 offensive linemen right now, Teron Armstead and Eric McCoy. I think Armstead's due to miss at least one more week. I'm not sure about McCoy at this point. He's missed a couple games. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. If they're down 2 offensive linemen, and I think their backup center against Washington, that's going to be trouble for Winston, because he will be under a lot of pressure. Washington gets really good interior pressure from Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne, and Chase Young and Montez Sweat have not lived up to expectations with the sack numbers yet, but eventually they're going to come. Eventually they're going to get a lot of pressure on guys and actually bring them down. And this is going to sound weird and also probably bad, but John Bostic got hurt last week. That's going to be a blessing in disguise for that defense. I hate saying that when starters get hurt, but he was 80. I think he ranked 80th out of 81st among linebackers per PFF, and he's just been dreadful in coverage. He was always a better fit in a 3-4 defense as a downhill playmaker. Washington has insisted on using him this year, despite him being terrible. I know they don't have anyone else proven at linebacker, but how much worse can Khaleke Hudson be than him? We'll find out, but I liked Hudson as a prospect coming out of Michigan. So I'm not wild about this game, but I think Washington at +2, I like them okay. I don't know if I'd bet it. Maybe if it gets to +3, I had seen a +2.5 over at FanDuel. So if people like the Saints here, maybe that would move. But I like Washington. Probably not going to bet this game unless it hits 3.
Yeah, I think Hudson at the very least should be able to cover better than Bostic. I agree that could be a blessing in disguise for sure. Yeah, my opinion on this game will depend on the Saints injury report. You said Terran Armstead could miss another game if he does, and if Eric McCoy is out again. Definitely going to take the Redskins in this game. I don't know why the Saints are favored, by the way. It just seems like people are overhyping them because they remember what happened in week 1 against the Packers and that blowout where Green Bay didn't really try, as Aaron Rodgers admitted. And then in week 3, they beat the Patriots by 2 touchdowns, but that was misleading because they scored 2 touchdowns off interceptions that were really drops. And heading into week 4, before even losing to the Giants, they were outgained by their opponents throughout the entire year. It just seems like people have a high opinion of the Saints because not just what happened this year, but before, like Sean Payton and Alvin Kamara, like they have some big names. They're just not that good of a team. They have so many injuries even outside of the offensive line. So they're not that good. I don't think they should be favored on the road here. So I'm going to be on the Redskins like you are, and I may bet them depending on if the Saints are missing multiple offensive linemen again.
Yeah, I could definitely see betting them if they have the offensive lineman issues. It's just the thing about getting Winston under pressure too is he will just throw the ball to get rid of it. We've seen so many times where it's like Winston's under pressure to like don't throw that ball, and then he'll do it. So Washington could get some serendipitous turnovers in this game. I agree with you. I don't think that New Orleans should necessarily be favored. I thought this would be more of a pick 'em type situation here. Like, maybe give New Orleans a little credit because Washington's defense has been so bad. But yeah, this line just seemed off to me, but I still don't want to bet it. I don't like betting on bad defenses when I can help it, especially when they are not matched with, if betting the Chiefs is different because you have an elite offense and a bad defense, but Washington, it's like offense can fluctuate. Defense has been bad. So we'll see.
Yeah, I remember the Redskins were favored over the Chargers in Week 1 at home, and now they're home underdogs against the Saints, who are definitely worse than the Chargers. Like, this doesn't make any sense. I made this line Redskins -2.5. So I think we're 4.5 points off, even though we're not going through any key numbers. So that's kind of a bummer, but still, like I think this number is mispriced, and if this gets to +3, I'm going to like the Redskins a lot more.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Next game, Titans at the Jaguars. This line opened up Titans -4. It's remained 4. There's definitely some controversy in this game. So I guess we'll touch on that. But who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Titans. I'm not in the business of betting on a team where Urban Meyer is 4 games into his career as an NFL coach, and it already feels like the demise of his entire tenure is here. For anyone watching who doesn't know, this is one of the few stories I was able to follow over the weekend, but Urban Meyer did not go home with the Jaguars on the team plane. He stayed in Ohio to visit some family, which I get is understandable. It's an unorthodox move, but he was trying to take advantage of the mini bye being there and having family there. But he was, seen in a bar, and he was, I'm trying to think of the best word, pictured in a raunchy situation, I believe is how we described it in Sporting News, with a woman there. And Urban Meyer is married. His wife was back home with the kids, babysitting or, keeping an eye on them, as she said on Twitter. So video of this, of course, surfaced of Urban Meyer. And now he has had to deal with the fallout of that. He's had to apologize to the team, which he reportedly did not do in a team meeting. He canceled the team meeting and met individually with each position group to discuss it. Reportedly, the team is like losing faith in him. They don't respect him at all. And then the front office was like, well, he has to earn our respect and trust again. And it's just like, they've had a lot of closed door meetings this week. And this is all just going on behind the scenes while Urban Meyer, the guy in question, is trying to lead his team in a tough battle against a team with a very good offense, best running back in the NFL. And, I know A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, we don't know if they're going to be healthy or back from hamstring injuries. But with all the distraction that the Jaguars are dealing with off the field, is that even going to matter that much? It will for my unit count, but there's no way I can pick the Jaguars after this. They lost one of their top receivers, DJ Chark, to an injury last Thursday, and all the extra time they could have gotten from this mini bye to prep, Urban Meyer has wasted by doing all of this nonsense. So he's just absolutely, he's in trouble. He's not going to be the coach after this year. I'd be stunned at this point. It would take a miracle. And the bummer thing, I was talking about to my coworkers about this, like they played decently, at least on offense against the Bengals. It seemed like they were ready to turn a corner, but now his players might quit on him after all this. So I'm going to be on the Titans in this one. They're coming off a disappointing loss to the Jets. They're going to want to bounce back. They're going to see an opportunity. Mike Vrabel's going to have them ready. The fact that this line hasn't moved off -4 makes me like it more. So I have this as written 0 to 3 units on the Titans. If both Brown and Jones don't play, it'll be 0. If one doesn't play, it'll be 1 or 2. And if both play, then it's probably going to be 3 or more.
Yeah, so I normally don't like fading these coach distraction stories. It seems like every time I do that, it just like comes up with a team wins and they rally behind the coach, or and then the stories are like, oh, this is overhyped, the media overhyped it. Seems like it happens every time because like the media always wants clicks, so they're always going to report these stories. But I think this one seems different to me because, first of all, Urban Meyer has no success, no history of success in the NFL. He's a college coach. I didn't like the hire. I felt like Bobby Petrino or Steve Spurrier. Petrino, by the way, didn't last very long in Atlanta. I don't know if you remember that, but it was he quit on this team, and it seems like Meyer could be out quicker. So, Meyer's lack of history of success in the NFL is one factor. Plus, the Jaguars don't have that many veterans on their roster. Like, who's going to rally the troops and like try to get a win? It's like Trevor Lawrence, who has no experience, James Robinson, who's in his second year, maybe Marvin Jones. I don't know, but like they have no real veteran leadership on this team outside of Jones. So I think this could be this could be a blowout easily. And it really depends on, like you said, if the Titans have their receiving core. Last week against the Jets, Tannehill did what he could, even though Henry rushed for like 150 yards. Tannehill was throwing to Nick Westbrook and Josh Reynolds, Chester Rogers. Like, these guys weren't coming down with catches like Brown and Jones would have in those situations. So I have trouble like backing a team like that, like a 4-point road favorite with no receiving core. I know that Derrick Henry is probably going to have a huge game, but still, it can open up an opportunity for Trevor Lawrence to have a backdoor cover, even at 4, because Tennessee's defense is so bad. They just made Zach Wilson look like a great quarterback. So I can't bet on the Titans, until I know that either Jones or Brown's going to play for sure. And even then, it's still kind of dicey because Tennessee's defense is terrible. So I can't take the Jaguars because of this distraction, which I think is legit. But I can't bet the Titans until I know that they're healthy. So it's kind of like stuck here without knowing what to do. So for office pool purposes, I'm going to take the Titans, but I'm not crazy about this game.
Yeah, and I think my whole thing is, you're definitely right that in the past we've been like, oh, there's these distractions around coaches. Mm-hmm. This one's different though, because also you have like video of what was going on. He didn't go home with the team after a really tough loss, which again, I understand. He planned to visit family in the Ohio area. It makes sense, but at the same time, that gives the team extra time on the flight home to be like, why the hell is this guy not here, like processing this loss with us, where we led huge and blew the game? Like, that's not great for a head coach. And like you said, Urban Meyer doesn't have the level of success that players are going to necessarily count on him. And I think if this team didn't have a rookie quarterback, I would maybe think like, oh no, the veteran quarterback will get them stabilized and, set them in the right direction. But this is such an uncomfortable spot for Trevor Lawrence, because like he might have to, like, he's in a rock and a hard place, because he could either like try to side with the sinking ship to save the team, or he can try to distance himself from that and just try to play the best he can while knowing that he's probably going to have new leadership very soon. I feel bad for him, especially. This is a terrible situation to be in. But yeah, I think the Titans will be my team, but those 2 receiver injuries, we're going to have to look out for those. Those are both going on. I will not be in on this game.
Yeah, I needed someone to console me for my loss too, because I had the Jaguars Giants money line parlay, and the Jaguars look great in the first half, and they blew that game. And then like, okay, whatever, the Giants probably won't beat the Saints, but then they beat the Saints, and it was gonna be like a $700 payout. So unfortunately, that didn't happen on a $50 bet. It was like 680 or 690, so it feels bad. The Jaguars, by the way, I think should hire Greg Olson. He's from the Florida area. He would be able to coach up Trevor Lawrence. He's respected around the NFL. He was with the Jaguars when Blake Bortles had his best year, so they know him well in that organization. At least the owner does. So I think that would be a great hire for the Jaguars.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I like Greg Olson a lot. There are a lot of really good offensive coaches out there too. I would give Eric Bieniemy a look. I think they're going to have to bring in someone, like you said, though, with a great reputation around the league, like very high level of success, someone safe almost, because Urban Meyer was the ultimate risk and it has not paid off. And that's I'm interested to see what happens there, though. This is like a soap opera right now.
I know. Yeah, seriously. I can't wait. All right. Next game, Lions at the Vikings. This line opened up Vikings -8. It dropped down to -7.5. Who do you like here?
Yeah, I don't like 7.5s, generally speaking. I don't like taking the favorites on 7.5, I should say. But I do have the Vikings written down for 0 units right now. Their high flying offense like suddenly sputtered against Cleveland, which is a really good defensive team. So I think Detroit's going to have a lot of trouble replicating what happened last week. But at the same time, the Vikings defense is rounding into form. So I think that they're going to be able to slow down the Lions enough. I just don't like the 7.5 number enough to bet on this. And I think if the Lions had better personnel, I would definitely be on them. I love their coach. I love Dan Campbell. But I'm pretty sure that the Vikings are going to pull out the win here. So I'm going to be on them. They've allowed 15.5 points on average in the last 2 games against the Seahawks and Browns, 2 offenses that have some weapons. And the Detroit offense doesn't have really any receiving weapons. So, yeah, I'm going to be on Minnesota here. But if you can convince me to side with Dan Campbell, I love to do that.
Well, I'm not going to do that. I like the Vikings a little bit more than you do. So we like to attack teams that have injuries, multiple injuries at one position. The Lions have multiple injuries at 2 positions right now because they lost center Frank Ragnow to an injury. So he's going to be out with Taylor Decker. There's 2 of their best offensive linemen. You could throw Penei Sewell into that as well. But I think right now Ragnow and Decker are better than Sewell at this point in Sewell's career. So the Vikings pass rush has been very good this year. They've struggled in the secondary, but their pass rush has been great. And they put a lot of pressure on Baker Mayfield. So I think that they should be able to get to Jared Goff quite a bit. And it's not like their secondary is going to be that threatened by Khalif Raymond and Quintus Cephas and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I think their defense is going to do quite well. The other position is the edge rush. So Trey Flowers has been out, so he could return. But they also lost Benson Mayowa to season-ending injury as well. So I think that the Lions pass rush is not going to get to Kirk Cousins as much as it could have a few weeks ago. And Cousins has been playing great this year outside of last week's game against Cleveland. And Cleveland's defense is amazing. So you can't really knock Cousins for that. So I like the Vikings quite a bit here. I think they should win in a blowout. Unless the Lions get some prize players back from injury, I don't think that'll happen. So I think Minnesota should win pretty easily.
Yeah, and I was unaware of the Ragnow injury. That's going to be a theme, is you're going to tell me about injuries I didn't hear about because I'm so hounded on the skill position players when I'm not watching. But yeah, with Ragnow out, I definitely like the Vikings more. I have this thing about Dan Campbell. I don't want to doubt him, but I think I can doubt the personnel in this situation. And I think, like you said, Minnesota's playing better than we thought they would. I think it just took Mike Zimmer time to round them into form this year, but they're playing much better. And like you said, there's no shame in putting up just a few points against Cleveland. That defense is looking really, really good. And, if you're limiting Cleveland and Seattle to a combined 2 weeks, I like that direction for the Vikings. So maybe I'll bump this up to a unit.
I said Benson Mayowa. I meant Romeo Cora. Same difference. But yeah, they're down. They're down 2 edge rushers unless Flowers come back. That's the big takeaway there. All right, this game, Broncos at the Steelers. The Steelers are 1-point favorites, and I feel like a decade ago there wouldn't have been a spread posted on this game because we don't know who Denver's quarterback is going to be. Teddy Bridgewater suffered a concussion right before halftime, and then Drew Lock came in, so we don't know who that's going to be. And I mentioned on my picks page, I remember 2003 where the Texans were playing the Jaguars, and there wasn't a line posted until Sunday morning because we didn't know if David Carr was going to start or if it was going to be David Ragone. Like, imagine caring that much about those two. Now, because there's so many sportsbooks everywhere, there is a line. So even though we don't know who Denver's quarterback is going to be, the Steelers are favored by 1. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, and I think in this case, the quarterback doesn't matter a ton. Like, Teddy Bridgewater is obviously the safer player than Drew Lock. Like, he doesn't make as many negative throws or potential interceptions or anything like that. And he moves the ball pretty steadily. You could call him Steady Teddy if you wanted to, but that's kind of a lame nickname. So I'm going to let's pretend like I didn't say that. I was in a car for like 7 hours yesterday, so I'm still recovering from that. But anyway, long story short, I like the Broncos here. I know they're coming off of a 16-point loss to the Ravens, but Drew Lock was thrown into that game when he was probably not quite ready for it. They'll have a full week to prepare him as a starter if Teddy Bridgewater's unable to play. And if you just look at the Steelers offense, it's hopeless. It's so bad. We were talking before we came on the show today, and we were talking about how last year, Ben Roethlisberger was only throwing short to intermediate passes. He couldn't really throw downfield. But now he can't even throw the intermediate passes. So they're all short to behind the line of scrimmage. You said he threw behind the line of scrimmage twice in fourth down scenarios, or maybe one was a 1-yard pass. So I have no faith that he's going to do well against a really good defense. I know the Broncos are a little bit banged up, but they still are only allowing 12.3 points per game. That's the second fewest in the NFL. So they're going to give Big Ben a lot of trouble. And they can just focus on taking Najee Harris away and say, hey, Ben Roethlisberger, you have a pectoral injury and a hip injury. We're going to make you beat us. That's going to be really tough for the Pittsburgh offense to do. And maybe the Pittsburgh defense can help make up for it a bit. But I still think that the Broncos are likely to, I think that they're going to win this game. So the fact that we're getting them as underdogs, even if it's just by 1 point, I like them here. I'm going to be on them for 1 to 3 units. The only thing that would knock it down is if they're still without 2 offensive linemen and have other injuries. That would be the one thing I have concerns about. I think Dalton Reisner was limited in practice on Friday last week. So maybe if he can come back and Glasgow's out, they'll be okay because they get by down 1 offensive lineman. But the Steelers are also without quite a few defensive linemen, so maybe it won't matter in the end anyway.
Yeah, it's true. Although they have TJ Watt back, and that's kind of the reason why I took the Steelers against the Packers last week. And for a while it looked like they were going to hang around, but then Roethlisberger had a fumble, basically set up the touchdown because the Packers have such a short field. And yeah, like you were saying, there's a 4th and 4. Roethlisberger threw a -1 yard pass. Then there was a 4th and 5, and Roethlisberger threw a 1-yard pass. And there was another 4th down where they're going to go for it. And I was like, oh, what's this going to be? A 2-yard pass? And then they had a false start and they punted. I'm like, okay, that's probably for the best. And they still had a chance to get the backdoor cover at the end. They had the ball. They were down 10. So if they scored a touchdown, they would have covered. And then Roethlisberger for the first time threw an intermediate pass and was picked off. So it was just such a brutal game to watch. I can't take the Steelers, especially as a favorite. They'd have to be a big underdog against a mediocre team at this point. So I agree with what you said about Denver. I would take Denver even if Locke plays. I obviously want Bridgewater because he's better. But Locke is, he's got some talent. He's not steady like Teddy, but he can make some big plays. He can run around. And I think with a week of preparation, he could do well even in this matchup. But like you said, the offensive line is the concern for Denver. They were missing 2 starters last week. It's kind of why I dropped my unit count. I was going to bet Denver at 4 to 5 units against the Ravens. But then when it was announced that Denver was missing 2 linemen, I dropped it down to 2 units. And yeah, I mean, who knows what would have happened if Bridgewater stayed in the game? But Locke gave him no chance because he had no preparation. But still, yeah. So if Denver has at least 1 offensive lineman back, I'm going to like him for a couple units. If not, probably going to be Denver on for no units.
Yeah, and I switched my pick to the Ravens once I saw that they were without the 2 offensive linemen. And, like you said, if Bridgewater stays in that game, I'm not sure that I end up getting that pick right. So that had a huge, huge impact. So, yeah, but I like the Broncos a lot, too. Their roster is very strong. I've loved how Bridgewater's playing, so hopefully he can come back quickly. But even if he doesn't this week, they'll be okay, and he can return in the future. So, I think that's the good thing about them is even though they don't have a top shelf quarterback, if Drew Lock can avoid interceptions, he can be a playmaker. We've seen him play well before, so it'll be nice to get to see him against a pretty good defense.
Yeah, he's super inconsistent. But if he's not far behind, he doesn't have to force anything. Kind of like what he did in that first match against the Chiefs last year. We threw that pick 6 when the game was kind of close. Fantasy Football Show says, get me on soon. Yeah, definitely at some point that'd be great. Check out his show. It's pretty good. After we're done here. So the next game is Packers at the Bengals. This line opened up Packers -3.5. It's down to 3. Looks like some sharp money on the Bengals. So are you with the Sharps?
I am with the Sharps very tentatively. I was writing my notes and I was like, oh, I'm going to be on the Packers here probably. And then I noticed that Jair Alexander got hurt. And was dealing with the shoulder injury. If Jair Alexander can't play, the Packers are going to have some serious issues in the secondary. Kevin King has not played well this year at all, and he would be thrust into a bigger role. I know Eric Stokes has played well, But if he has to be the number one cornerback, that could be a problem because he's still a rookie and still developing. So if Alexander can't play, that's going to make it a lot harder for the Packers to defend the Bengals defense or Bengals offense because they have 3 legitimate receiving weapons if T. Higgins plays. And I know Joe Mixon might not play, but I don't think that'll matter too much because the Bengals will be able to move the ball on the Packers through the air. So where I'm at right now is I like the Bengals at +3 if Alexander doesn't play, which seems likely. If he does somehow recover from whatever shoulder injury is bugging him and is able to play, then I would be much less sure and might switch my pick to the Packers. But I think we've talked about this before. Like the Packers, they have some holes on that team right now. They were exposed big time in week 1, but they were also, not trying super hard, as you mentioned earlier. Rodgers has admitted to that. But this is going to be a tougher matchup than people realize, playing in Cincinnati as road favorites. So I like the Bengals at +3. If it had been +3.5, I probably would have liked them more. But at +3, I might bet a unit on them if Alexander's out.
I love Cincinnati here, and not just for the reason you mentioned. I have a few others, but the Alexander injury is huge, especially against Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is probably going to be back, and they have Tyler Boyd. It's a great receiving core. So if you can take advantage of a secondary missing its best player, I mean, that's absolutely huge. Plus, the Bengals have had extra time to prepare for this game. So I think that's a factor as well. So a couple of things here. First, I think the Packers might be a little distracted or unfocused against the Bengals. It's kind of like might be one of those games where they just don't show up. So I was pretty surprised by Aaron Rodgers' demeanor against the Steelers. Like you didn't get to see it yet, but like if you watch that game, just like look at Rodgers' facial expressions. Like he was so into that game. Like he really was kind of like in the Tom Brady FU mode type of like demeanor that he had. And I think it's because he was going against Roethlisberger, and this is their first matchup since the Super Bowl. Another Hall of Fame quarterback. I feel like he just wanted to beat him. I underestimated that. I didn't think that Rodgers would be that tuned in, but he was really engaged in the game. And coming off a big win, now he's going to be a road favorite against a team that he barely sees. It's a non-conference foe. I don't think he's going to take the Bengals seriously, or at least some of the players may not. So I think that works in Cincinnati's favor. Plus, I think this line's a little too high. Like it's only -3 really, but at the same time, I don't know if the Packers deserve to be road favorites if you consider what they've done this year. So just throw out the first game that they didn't show up against the Saints. But after that, they trailed against the Lions at halftime. And I know they won by 18, but still, it could have been a lot closer, and it was for most of the game. Then they beat the Niners by 2, and that was a very injury-ravaged San Francisco team that lost 2 cornerbacks in the first half. So not that much of an impressive win. And then they beat the Steelers by 10. The Steelers are terrible. So the Packers haven't really done anything that impressive this year, and now they're road favorites against a quality Cincinnati team that matches up well against them with their injuries. I like the Bengals a lot, and they're going to be one of my top picks this week as long as Alexander's out and the Packers are missing a couple offensive linemen again.
Yeah, I think I can definitely agree with you. Some of the people in the comments have said this line feels almost like a trap. Yeah, Kodak said that right there.
Yep.
I feel like that as well because I was looking at it and I'm like, oh, -3 for the Packers. That's not bad. Like, you kind of get baited in by that. You're like, oh, I thought they would have been maybe favored by more. But then you really think about it and break it down. Like you said, they've not been that impressive this year. The Bengals have been pretty impressive most of the time. I know that they haven't won games big or anything really. They beat the Steelers by, I think, 10, just like the Packers. And then they had 2 late wins over the Jaguars and Vikings. But it's just all about the weaponry they have. So I think I'll probably end up on Cincinnati for a unit or 2 maybe. I'm always skeptical of going against Aaron Rodgers because he can show up at any time. But if he was that amped for the Steelers game, maybe they do come out flat and have to try to earn a comeback win in this one.
Yeah, I think the line may look low to the public because it's only 3, like I said. But if you think about it, if you translate to Bengals at Packers, it's maybe not -9 because you don't get 3 points for home teams anymore, but it's like -8, -8.5, and that's pretty high. Like that's higher than Vikings over Lions, which is pretty. There's a big disparity there. I made the spread a pick 'em. So I think the spread is 3 points too high. Unfortunately, the 3.5s are gone. The Sharps took care of that. The public's all over the Packers, and the Sharps are on the Bengals, which doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, better to side with the sharps for sure in that scenario.
Yeah, usually you want to do that. Not always, but usually. All right. Last game of the early afternoon slate: the Patriots at the Texans. This line open up Patriots -9. It's still -9. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Patriots here a lot. At first, now I hear that they have a couple offensive linemen on the COVID list. Isaiah Wynn and Mike Onwenu both landed on the COVID list. So if they don't play and Trent Brown is still nursing a calf injury, it could get a little dicey for them. I still like them no matter what in this scenario, though. This line feels too low to me for the Patriots because they've played very well this year, and we've talked about this before, but they're kind of underrated. Like, they were a Damian Harris fumble away from beating the Dolphins, and then they were about a couple yards from taking a last-minute lead against the Buccaneers. And I'm not saying they would have won that one. Brady, for all we know, could have driven down the field like he so often does and gotten a game-winning field goal with 56 seconds left. But if they were 3-1, I feel like they'd be favored by more against these Texans. Like, the Bills, I think, closed at as 18.5-point favorites against the Texans last week. And I was woefully wrong about the Texans, having a chance to cover that number. They got crushed in that game. Davis Mills has been completely ineffective. This is how bad the offense has been with Davis Mills in his 2 starts. The Texans are averaging 4.5 points, 151 yards, and 2.5 turnovers per game. And he looked decent against the Bengals, but even then, the offense sputtered far too often. So I'm going to be all over the Patriots this week. I think Mac Jones is going to be amped up to get a win. And I know, like, there might be some emotional thing, like the Patriots coming off of a tough loss against Tom Brady. But given what was said about them in the lead up to that game, so many people thinking that, oh, they're going to get crushed by the Buccaneers. Like, a lot of people were just like, they stand no chance in that game. The fact that they had a kick to go ahead in the last minute, I think that's going to actually help their confidence. And then the team's going to be able to look and say, like, hey, we're really close to beating the reigning Super Bowl champion. Let's go out here and kick the Texans like to a pulp. So I like the Patriots here. I've got 1 to 4 units on this one. It depends on how healthy the offensive line is. But yeah, I don't mind this number. I think they could easily win this by double digits.
Yeah, they definitely could. I don't know if you saw Davis Mills' first half stats against the Bills. Did you see it?
I did not see the first half stats.
Okay, so this is before garbage time. So Davis Mills in the first half, he was 1 of 7 for 3 yards and 2 interceptions and a lost fumble. It was so bad. He was so bad. And now he has to go against Bill Belichick, who like usually feasts on rookie quarterbacks. We just saw what he did to Zach Wilson a few weeks ago. Zach Mills is the old Penn State quarterback. Zach Wilson a few weeks ago. I feel like he's going to do the same thing to Davis Mills this week. It's going to be even worse. I kind of joked on the picks page, like if I could assign negative points to the Texans, I would. Unfortunately, that's not possible. So I think this should be a blowout, like it should be. But the one thing that's holding me back outside of the offensive lineman, which you just mentioned, is that Mac Jones is going against Lovie Smith, and we just saw Lovie Smith kind of fool Trevor Lawrence in week 1. Now, obviously, the Patriots coaching is much better than what the Jaguars have. So the Patriots are going to put Mac Jones in a better position than the Jaguars put Trevor Lawrence. But still, it's a tough defensive coach to go against. Texans defense isn't that bad. They kind of limited Buffalo to a bunch of field goals in the first half last week until things fell apart. And they handled the Panthers. They kept the Panthers game kind of close. So, all it takes is a weird fumble return for a touchdown, a kickoff return for a touchdown. And suddenly the Patriots with a rookie quarterback may not cover the spread. So I'm not going to bet this game. I think this number is kind of right where it should be. And I don't want to back a rookie quarterback against a great defensive-minded coach. So I'm not going to bet this game, but I'm going to be on the Patriots for no units.
Yeah, I can see that. Lovie Smith's obviously a very talented coordinator. I'm a fan of his. I think that the Patriots are going to come with a plan to make sure that Mac Jones doesn't have to do anything too crazy. I mean, last week they relied on him so heavily because Tampa Bay just shut down the run the entire game. So I think we're going to see a heavy dose of Damian Harris this week and just try to run the ball as much as they can and just, take pressure off of Mac Jones in that scenario. But yeah, if it's a situation where Mac Jones again has to make all the plays, it might be tough to cover this number. So I can see where you're coming from for sure.
Yeah, I like what the Patriots did with Harris last week, where they got him out as a receiver. I think that could be big, especially in this game. Against Houston's linebackers, I think you could beat them that way. I like the Patriots as like you do. So before we get to the late afternoon games, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, and visit the merch store. I'm wearing a Walter football shirt that you can get there. So that would help us out a lot. So we have 4 games as usual in the late afternoon slate. The Bears are at the Raiders. This line open up Raiders -4.5. It's up to 5.5. So who do you like here?
I like the Bears here. I was not impressed with what I saw from the Raiders against the Chargers. The Chargers did not come in with a good run defense, and yet the Raiders could not run the ball on them really at all. So I think they're going to have a lot of trouble doing that against the Bears, who are better against the run. I'm pretty sure Eddie Goldman is still out, but they're still stronger against the run than the Chargers have been. And we saw what happens when you get pressure on Derek Carr. Joey Bosa basically said after the game, like, you get pressure on him and he folds. And that is true to an extent. Derek Carr is not the most mobile guy. I actually thought he did well at times to make plays outside the pocket. But that was kind of the first time I was like, okay, we're seeing what's wrong with the offensive line. Like, when he's under pressure, that's going to be a problem. And that offensive line doesn't block well, especially up the middle where Rodney Hudson used to be. Then you look at the Raiders secondary. Damon Arnett and Trayvon Mullen both got hurt last week. So that's 2 of the team's top 3 or 4 cornerbacks. And I know that neither of them is particularly great. Like, Trayvon Mullen is an okay number 2 cornerback, and Damon Arnett's largely been a disaster during his NFL career. But then you got to ask yourself the question, what do they have behind them if those guys are still playing significantly? So I think if those guys are both out, Chicago will take advantage of that because they have Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson. So they have some weapons that can get the job done there. And the Raiders were just gashed by Austin Eckler. So I think Damian Williams should have success with him, even without David Montgomery playing. So I think this all comes down to, can you trust Justin Fields, or, Andy Dalton might come back if Matt Nagy really wants to go back to him, which he continues to insist. But can you trust Justin Fields or Andy Dalton against this Raiders defense? I think so. I mean, Justin Herbert is obviously a much better quarterback than both of those players right now, but the Raiders defense is good, but they are not like elite. They're kind of at the Cowboys level. They're making a ton more plays than they used to, but they can still be beaten. So I just think this line's a little bit too high, especially if it's climbing towards 6. So I'm on the Bears here. I've got 1 to 2 units written down. It'll depend on who starts at quarterback and what the injury situation in the secondary looks like.
Yeah, if Andy Dalton's starting for the Bears, I'm not going to take the Bears, even though I would like the Bears a lot, which doesn't Fields. But we talked about teams quitting on their coaches. I think we'd have a mutiny against Matt Nagy if he starts Andy Dalton, because Justin Fields played so well against the Lions. He made a couple mistakes, but he had a great game overall. And to start Andy Dalton, who is not the future, he's not the better option even right now, I don't think. So I think some of the players just might quit on Matt Nagy. And something you mentioned last week, where the Bears kind of might quit on Matt Nagy, and credit to them, they showed up and they tried hard against the Lions and they rallied behind Justin Fields, who like I said, played a great game. But what's the motivation for playing with Andy Dalton? Because he's not the better option right now, and he's not the future. So. I just we'll have to see what happens, but I think Nagy, at least I hope that was kind of coach speak, kind of make sure Justin Fields isn't too cocky and is not is going to be trying hard because he knows he might get benched, even though he probably won't unless he's terrible. So I'm pretty confident Fields is going to start this game unless Nagy is just so incompetent. So with that in mind, I like what you said about the Bears. I think they can take care of the 2 positions of weakness for the Raiders, which is being the offensive line. Also the cornerbacks, they also lost Nate Hobbs late in the game to a concussion. So it's 3 cornerbacks that they're down. Hobbs is their slot corner. So that's going to be a problem, I think, against the Bears receivers. And I think this line's too high. I think this line should be I think Raiders -3 even. especially given that they're coming off a short week. So they're 3-1 right now, and you have to wonder what this line would be if they were 1-3, because 2 of their wins were in overtime, and obviously those could have gone either way. So if the Raiders are 1-3 and they're hosting the 2-2 Bears, I think this line would be 3 minus 2.5. So I think we're getting good value with the Bears. So I like the Bears, for like 3 or 4 units or so, unless it's Dalton starting, and then I might take the Raiders if Dalton starts.
Yeah, no, I think I agree that Matt Nagy's probably doing coach speak. I just have no faith that he will do the right thing, because he doesn't have the right plan in at quarterback half the time. You're like, all right, he's going to move the pocket for Fields. Nope, let's just let Cleveland murder him and keep him on the spot. So, I'm glad we're on the same page with the Bears here. But if Dalton's in the game, then I might drop this to a no bet. Like, I still think I would pick the Bears in office pools, just because I think the Raiders are pretty overrated at this point in time. But we'll see what happens there with Matt Nagy. But this line just seems way high to me. I would have thought it would start at 3.5 and then maybe drop if the Bears got action. But the fact that it's moving in the other direction is weird to me.
Yeah, I think the Raiders are overrated as well. Like I said, 2 overtime wins, and their 1 non-overtime win was against the Steelers when TJ Watt got hurt. Like, that was a 3-0 game, and then Watt got hurt, and then the Raiders started scoring nonstop. It felt like if Watt didn't get hurt, I feel like that could have gone either way too. So, all right, next game, the other team that played Monday night, the Browns are at the Chargers. This line opened up Chargers -1. It's up to 1.5. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Chargers. I don't have any units on this game right now. I think this line seems about right to me. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think both of these teams are really good. They're 2 of the up-and-coming teams in the AFC right now. Justin Herbert's obviously blossoming into an elite quarterback at this point. He's got a ton of great weapons. I know we didn't see Mike Williams in action the other night, but the fact that he can use Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Jared Cook, and even like Donald Parham to catch touchdowns from him. It's really great what they've been able to do with that offense. And Brandon Staley actually knows how to manage the clock and make right coaching moves. So as good as Anthony Lynn was at developing that offense and helping Herbert in his first year, I think they made the right move on moving over to Staley there. But if you look at the Browns, they have a really, really good defense as well. They've limited the Vikings and Bears to a combined 13 points the last 2 weeks. Obviously, the Chargers are better than those offenses, but I still think that they might be slowed down, especially if Myles Garrett can get some pressure on Justin Herbert. Herbert's been releasing the ball so quick, though, that it might not even matter. But, if you put Garrett over Storm Norton at right tackle, that's going to be a tough matchup for Norton. So, we'll have to see what the plan Kevin Stefanski and the Browns bring into this game is. I still think I think I would prefer the Chargers to win. I know they don't have any semblance of home field advantage in that stadium. It was mostly Raiders people there the other night, but I just like how they're playing. Nothing really seems to bother them. So I'm going to be siding with them, but I'm not going to bet this game just because I could easily envision the Browns defense getting enough pressure on Justin Herbert, forcing him into a turnover. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this game, though.
Yeah, I'm not planning on betting this game either. We're going to disagree, though. I'm on the Browns for no units. So a couple things. One is that what you're saying about the Chargers, like having that one offensive line weakness against the Browns defensive line that's ferocious. Past couple of weeks they sacked Justin Fields 9 times, and then they really got to Kirk Cousins. So I think they could maybe take advantage of that. And Justin Herbert, like he's been great so far, but this is his toughest defensive matchup of the year. Like we thought it might be the Redskins, but it really is this. And so Cleveland's defense should be able to limit the Chargers in what they're trying to do. And so I like Cleveland for that reason. Also, with the Browns overall, I think they should be able to run the ball pretty well in the Chargers. The Raiders couldn't really do that because Josh Jacobs wasn't healthy. With Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, I think they should be able to do that. Plus, the Chargers haven't had a full week to prepare for this game. It feels like against a team like Cleveland, you really need that full week, and the Browns having that extra day should help them out. The one problem with the Browns right now is Baker Mayfield. Like, he was so bad last week. I know you said you didn't get to watch many of the games. I don't know if you saw Cleveland, Minnesota, but he was really bad. There's pressure bothered him sometimes, but he missed 3 touchdowns. Like that game shouldn't have been 14-7. Should have been like 28-7. He was just terrible, and he wasn't very good against the Bears either. Like the defense really carried the Browns against the Bears plus the running game. So Mayfield's coming off 2 bad games, and so like now they're underdogs. I feel like I want to buy low on Mayfield. Like he's a good quarterback. He's just coming off 2 bad games. I think he should be able to rebound. Like maybe he won't, but I think that there's a chance that he'll bounce back from a couple of sluggish games, kind of like Josh Allen did. Like he had 2 bad games to start the year, and then he just torched the Redskins in week 3. So I think Mayfield could do the same thing, especially with the Chargers coming off the short work week. So I'm going to be on the Browns, but I'm not going to bet this game. Don't really see an edge.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're on opposite sides, but we share the sentiment that there's no edge in this game.
Right.
So I totally understand your argument. And Baker has been bad and is due for a bounce back. And as you mentioned 2 things that I lost in my fantasy game by less than 1 point this week, and I had Josh Jacobs and Odell Beckham Jr. So hearing you talk has like angered me because I'm realizing like I was so close that if Baker had just completed one more pass or Jacobs had gotten one more run. But I'm over it at this point, so I'll stick with the Chargers because I guess I should be slightly angry at Baker Mayfield. But yeah, no, there's no real edge in this game.
Yeah, 2 of the missed touchdowns were to Beckham. The other was to Hunt. So yeah, it was bad. Maybe it was a good thing that you can watch it live. It could have made you very angry. It was frustrating. The Browns won, but still, like I said, it shouldn't have been that close. All right, next game, Giants at the Cowboys. This line open up. Cowboys -7. It's remained -7. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Giants. I don't like this game a ton. The Cowboys offense has been unstoppable this year, which has been nice to watch for Dak Prescott. He's played very, very well, and he's taken advantage of his weapons for sure. Their defense has been better as well. But I think that this is just going to be a tougher matchup for the Cowboys. The Giants defense has been good at times. They've been a very inconsistent team as a whole. But I think that they're going to come motivated for this one to slow down the Cowboys and just, try to find a way to hold them to like 24 points or something like that, make a statement, stay in this against the divisional rival. The Cowboys defense this year has allowed an average of 24.3 points per game. So, if the Giants can reach that average, which is not a gimme by any means, because the Giants have scored 14 points against the Falcons earlier in the year. But that would mean they would just need to hold the Cowboys to 31 points to earn the push. So I think it's doable. Kadarius Toney and Saquon Barkley are stepping up. Kenny Golladay played better last week. And I know that Saints are a lot weaker of a team than the Cowboys, but I do think that if the Giants can build on their momentum and continue to run the ball well, they might have a chance to cover this one. Like I said, I'm only on this for maybe 0 to 1 units because I don't trust Daniel Jones that much. But yeah, that's where I'm standing on this one.
Yeah, same thing as last game. We're not confident and we're on opposite sides. So I'm usually on the Giants in these games because like the Cowboys are often overrated. But I think that's changed now. Dallas's defense is playing much better than it has in years past. Trevon Diggs has been amazing, probably defensive rookie of the year. Micah Parsons is probably defensive rookie of the year. Trevon Diggs probably the most improved player of the year. They've been great, and Dallas's pass rush is very good. They still struggle against the run, so Saquon Barkley could have a good game. But with Blake Martinez being out for the Giants, I think Dallas is going to be able to run the ball very easily as well. So I think we're getting some line value here. The advanced spread on this game was Cowboys -8.5. It's down to 7, which is a key number. And it fell because the Giants beat the Saints, who had so many injuries. Like I feel like that's an overreaction. This number is probably like right where it should be. I made this line, I think -7, so it's kind of, it's right there. But given the value with the advanced spread, I'm going to take the Cowboys, but I really don't see any other edges either here.
Yeah, you make a good case for the Cowboys. Like, as much that I'm considering flipping right now, I'll probably stick with the Giants right now. But yeah, maybe my one concern would be the Giants could also come out flat after having beaten the Saints. But if this weren't a divisional game, I think I'd be worried about that more. I think Joe Judge will have them amped up to face the Cowboys. But that 1.5 point of value on the spread definitely makes a difference. But I'll stick with the Giants for now, maybe change later in the week. But this isn't a game that I'm like super into betting either way.
Yeah, there'd have to be some surprise injuries for me as well. I just don't really see anything here. Last of the late afternoon games, the 49ers at the lone undefeated Cardinals. This line is Cardinals -5.5. It's where it opened. So who do you like here?
Yeah, those 25th ranked Cardinals in those power rankings that we read earlier in the year, right? Last undefeated team. Oh,
Exactly.
man, that they definitely look wrong now. I screwed up last week. I thought that the Cardinals were going to struggle against the Rams. They came very ready for that one. I don't think I'm willing to doubt them at this point. Their defense, as I mentioned, just beat the Rams. They limited them to 20 points. One touchdown came in garbage time. So the fact they were able to do that is a really great sign. And Trey Lance may end up starting this game because Jimmy Garoppolo has a calf injury, or he seemed to think he wasn't going to play. And then Shanahan said, oh, he might actually play. So if Garoppolo does play, I would probably like the Cardinals even more. But I'm still on them with Trey Lance at quarterback. Lance might be an upgrade long-term over Garoppolo, but he's still super raw right now, especially with his accuracy. He's going to make a lot of flashy plays, but he's going to also have some throws that you're going to be like, oh, how did he miss that? That was wide open. Or, oh my goodness, he threw that right to the other team. So I think the Cardinals will find a way to rattle him a little bit. Again, I like his future outlook, but Kyler Murray's going to outplay him for sure. And the Cardinals should win by a touchdown here. So I'm on them for 1 to 2 units. If Garoppolo plays and isn't 100%, we saw him do that once last year against the Dolphins and look awful. I will be very much interested in Arizona. But either way, I think the Cardinals are the right side here because the 49ers are still very banged up in the secondary.
Yeah, I'd like Arizona more if Garoppolo plays. I agree with you there. Plus, the Cardinals don't really have any tape on Trey Lance. They have a half against the Seahawks, and like there's really not much to glean on that. So I think they might struggle a bit more against Trey Lance. They haven't played a scrambling quarterback yet this year, so I wonder how their defense would do. Their defensive line would do against a scrambling quarterback. So it's going to sound bad, but I'm going to not be on the Cardinals for the first time this year if Trey Lance starts. The kind of upset about that because I bet the Cardinals win the Super Bowl. But I just worry about the Cardinals' mentality in this game coming off such a big win against the Rams. Like the Rams were flat last week because they beat the Buccaneers and then they were playing on Thursday night. I feel like the Cardinals could be flat as well. Like coming off such a big win against the Rams. Kyler Murray had never beaten the Rams. Such a huge win on the road, and now they're at home against a 49er team coming off 2 losses in a row. The 49ers have issues in the secondary, and that's why I'm not going to bet them because it feels like Arizona could expose those very easily. But I just think that with their pass rush, they could bother Kyler Murray, especially if Arizona's down multiple offensive linemen again. The Rams were getting pressure on Murray last week. It's just Murray was just doing such a great job of avoiding it and like scrambling around, running around, like using his legs to buy time to find receivers. In a game like this, coming off a big win, I don't know if Murray's going to be willing to sacrifice himself that much. I feel like he might think he's going to win this one easily, or at least easier than he did against the Rams. So I just wonder if Arizona is going to bring his A game, and that's why I'm not going to bet them. So I'm on right now. I'm on the Niners for no units. I just think that I just don't like Arizona's motivation here. Also, the advanced spread in this game was Arizona -2.5, and it's popped up 3 points. Now, I think that line was wrong. So I'm not going to automatically fade a team because of an advanced spread adjustment like that. But a movement of 3 points through 2 key numbers is just something that I feel like should be considered at least.
Yeah, I think it was wrong, and they're probably factoring in a little on Lance possibly starting with one of those picks there. So I can see it. Yeah, I've doubted the Cardinals once. I get the motivational edge you're talking about, but I don't feel like doubting them again. I'd rather just ride them until they lose or like get covered badly. And I know they did not cover against Minnesota earlier in the year, but yeah, I think that they're gonna find a way to win this one. I think they'll still come motivated even for a divisional game, but you might be right. You tend to be better at finding the motivational elements than I am. So if anyone's in doubt on this one, I would recommend they trust you, but I'm going to stick with the Cardinals.
Yeah, well, the motivational angles can be very wrong sometimes. It's like you're not in the locker room, so I don't know. Like maybe the Cardinals really want to beat the Niners because the Niners beat them last year, even though it's kind of like a weird game where everyone is banged up. So I don't know. Kevin's asking, are there any futures picks you see value in? I'm going to be like every Wednesday I look at them. And if I see something, I'll post it on the site. I just haven't seen anything yet. I want to get a better number on the Chiefs, but we won't get that unless they lose to Buffalo, which we'll discuss in a second. And Richard asking, is this a legitimate survivor pick? I would not take Arizona because they might be flat. I think there are so many better options this week, but we'll get to survivor after these next two picks. So the Sunday night game, big game of the week, the Bills at the Chiefs. This line opened up Chiefs -3, went down to 2.5. And now it's hovering around 3. It's weird. It's either -3 plus 100 or -2.5 -120. So you kind of get your pick as to what you want with the spread. So I'm going to put a Chiefs -2.5. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Bills here. I liked it a lot when it was at +3. They've shaken the rust off after a slow start. Now they get to continue to be dominant against a weak defense. I mean, the Chiefs defense has been terrible this year. They're allowing an average of 31.3 points per game. And the Bills have been excellent in recent weeks on offense. They're scoring almost 40 points per game. It's at 39.3 their last 3 games. That includes 2 shutout wins over the Dolphins and Texans. Yes, I know that was the game Tua got hurt and Jacoby Brissett came into the game completely cold. And Davis Mills was the other game. So, you can't read a ton into those like big time shutdowns or anything. But I just think that they're going to be able to keep pace with Patrick Mahomes in this one because the Chiefs defense just isn't good at all. And I know Buffalo's defense is rather untested. They have not really played against any great quarterbacks aside from Mills and Tua/Brissett. They've played Roethlisberger and Taylor Heineke. So it's not the most inspiring list of good quarterbacks they've played, but the Bills, I think, are going to come into this one hungry. They're going to know like this is an opportunity for them to make a statement. They lost to the Chiefs the last 2 times they've played, the only 2 times Allen and Mahomes have met, and they're going to want revenge for that playoff loss. They're going to see an opportunity against this defense. So I think that they have a shot at winning this game. I don't know if they get it done, but when we were getting 3, I definitely liked that possibility. At +2.5, I don't like it as much, but I'm willing to fade the Kansas City defense. So I'm not ready to trust them to not give up a ton of points at this point. Here's an interesting stat. So the Bills are forcing an average of 2.5 punts per every offensive score they allow. That's best in the NFL. The Chiefs are forcing 0.3 punts per offensive score. That is the worst in the NFL. They have not gotten off the field on third down. They're the 22nd ranked third down defense in the league. So I just don't see a reason to trust the Chiefs defense. Maybe Patrick Mahomes goes out, scores every drive against Buffalo and covers here. But that's the only way I think a cover happens because I think the Chiefs are going to have a really tough time stopping Buffalo. So I'm going to be on Buffalo for 1 to 3 units, depending on where this line lands. If it ends up at +3, I'll probably like it more just because we're getting a potential Chiefs by 3, which I think is the most likely result of this game.
So we finally have like a big disagreement. I like the Chiefs quite a bit, and I want to ask you this: if the Chiefs are 4-0, which they easily could be because Edwards-Helaire had that fumble against Baltimore, and then they had 3 turnovers to start the game against the Chargers, which they just didn't look like they were focused. Like Mahomes was throwing no-look passes. If they were 4-0 and they're hosting the 3-1 Bills, like what do you think the spread would be?
Probably somewhere around 5 points, I would think, maybe a little higher.
Yeah, I said like 4.5. Like I feel like it would be around there. And so I think we're getting line value from that perspective. Also, the Chiefs are -3.5 on the advanced spread, and now it's 2.5, even though they won against the Eagles. I know the Bills had that shutout win, but again, it was against Davis Mills, so like it doesn't mean anything. It's a pretty funny stat that you gave there. But you mentioned the Bills quarterbacks that they battled this year. look at the Chiefs quarterbacks that they battled. There's Baker Mayfield, then Lamar Jackson, then Justin Herbert, and then Jalen Hurts, who ran around and, hit some big plays until they got to the red zone. So I feel like the Chiefs schedule has been tougher than what the Bills have endured thus far. And, all that Mahomes needs to do here is win by a field goal or more against the team he's dominated. I feel like he should be able to do that, and I think the Chiefs are the ones that might make the statement, because everyone seems down on the Chiefs. Like everyone's like saying, like on Monday night, something that I noticed, a couple of ESPN's announcers like the Chargers are the team to beat in the AFC West. I'm like, wait, you have the defending AFC champion in the Chiefs. I know the Chargers beat the Chiefs in week 3, but still, like the Chiefs are still the team to beat. And yet everyone seems to be dismissing them. One publication's power rankings had them 15th heading into week 4, which is ridiculous. Like it feels like everyone's way down on the Chiefs. And granted, their defense has been terrible, but they still have Patrick Mahomes and all those weapons. And I need to see the Bills be able to stop them. I know they stopped Davis Mills and they stopped Ben Roethlisberger and all those other crappy quarterbacks, but I have no faith that they could stop Mahomes. And also, last thing, the public likes the Bills. So this is a publicly backed underdog. It just feels like the Chiefs are going to make a big statement here. I like the Chiefs. I think they win by a field goal or more.
Yeah, I can see them winning by a field goal or more. I can, but I just don't think that they're going to be able to stop the Bills' offense. It's going to have to rely on Patrick Mahomes scoring every time down the field. Maybe the Bills' defense doesn't pick up any stops in this game, but I think they basically have been built to try to stop the Chiefs. Like that was the plan that I think Sean McDermott and company went into this offseason with. They come away with as many defensive players as they can to get pressure on Mahomes. Granted, they changed up the offensive line entirely, so maybe that doesn't happen. But I think the Bills have a lot to prove. I know the Chiefs might have a lot to prove too, but I don't know. I feel like the motivation sides on the Bills here, because this is going to be like their biggest game of the year by far. Like this, they're not going to play another team like the Chiefs throughout the entire regular season. They're not going to care as much about a game. So I can see that happening. I could see the Chiefs winning, but I just think I like the Bills here. And maybe me and the public will be proven wrong, as public dogs are so often. But I'm going to stick with Buffalo here.
Yeah, it just seems like we disagree on the motivation. I'm not going to say the Bills aren't going to be motivated, but I think that given that the public likes them, all the ESPN people are going to pick them. I think there might be a little too much pressure on Josh Allen, who hasn't won a huge game like this yet. And I think the Chiefs might want to make a statement. I think one thing that could help the Chiefs defense maybe get some stops is that they struggle more against the run than the pass, and the Bills don't really run the ball. And they just don't do that. Josh Allen obviously going to scramble around, but Singletary and Moss are not going to threaten that defense. So I think the Chiefs match up well against the Bills. But we'll see. It should be a good game. I like the Chiefs for a few units. And we have this disagreement, but we can't agree on everything.
Yeah, if we agreed on everything, we always say this show would be really boring. If when we don't know when we agree on everything, it's fun. But good, healthy disagreement's always good. That's how we learn.
Yeah, it's fun too, because like I have no idea who you're going to pick, and I think you have no idea who I'm going to pick heading into this. So it's always cool to find out. The Monday night game, I had a little trouble handicapping this one, so maybe you have a stronger opinion. Colts at the Ravens. The sign opened up Ravens -7. It's remained 7. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I also had trouble handicapping this one, so I think we'll probably agree on this one in terms of what we want to bet, but I'm interested to see if we end up on the same side. I think the Ravens remain a bit overrated, probably. They barely beat the Chiefs because my guy Clyde fumbled that one time. And then last week I think they were tied with the Broncos 7-7 early, and then Bridgewater got concussed, and then the Broncos couldn't score after that. So I think people are going to look at those two wins and look at the Ravens and say like, oh, they're much better than the Colts, who, I've said on this podcast have not been very good at times this year. But the Colts are starting to get healthier again, which is something you pointed to. Once that happens, they're going to be better than people realize. And I know they're without Quentin Nelson, but they might get Braden Smith back this week. I know Xavier Rhodes' return has been helping them big time. So I'm torn on this one because I don't love the Colts in this spot because Carson Wentz could have, a tough game at any point. But I think if they can get Jonathan Taylor going again like they got last week against the Dolphins, granted, the Ravens' run defense is a little bit better than that of the Dolphins, which I think is bottom 3 in the league. I think that the Colts will be able to keep this within 7. I'm not confident in that at all because the Ravens also are getting healthier on defense. Their secondary is in better shape than it was earlier in the year. But I just think this is a little too much to put on the Ravens here with the Colts getting a little bit better. So I could see this being, maybe even if I don't want to say field goal game, but I don't think that the Ravens are guaranteed to win this by a touchdown. Is how I will put it. So I'm going to be on the Colts, but this is our 0 unit bet right now, which probably means it'll be a 1 unit bet by the time Monday night rolls around, whatever I decide to do.
Nice. Yeah, right now I pencil in the Ravens -7 as my pick, only because the Colts might be without 2 of their offensive linemen. You mentioned Braden Smith might be back, and if he is, that would change my opinion on this game. If Smith is back, I would be on the Colts. The Ravens have some injury questions too with their offensive line. Alejandro Villanueva got hurt last week. So if he's out and Ronnie Stanley's out as well, I may even consider betting the Colts if they have their offensive lineman back. So it's really, it really depends on the injury report. That's why I had trouble handicapping this game, is because there's so many unknowns for injuries in this game. So I kind of have to see what happens later in the week. As I always say, Saturday is the most important day for updates on the picks on my website because we have the Friday night injury reports, and like I just kind of go through those Friday night and then publish my Saturday thoughts. So definitely look forward to that. Like I might end up betting this game, might end up betting the Ravens. I mean the Colts. I don't think I'm going to bet the Ravens though. I just feel like I agree with you. I think that the Ravens are a little bit overrated, even though they seem to be getting maybe a little bit healthier, but still, I just don't like this number. So it's either Colts or nothing for me. But if the Colts are missing players and the Ravens are not, then it's going to be Ravens for no units.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach, but you got to consider the revenge game element of this. The Colts left Baltimore, so won't Baltimore be very very upset about that and want to beat the Colts all these years later? We were having a fun conversation about that at Sporting News today, so I don't think that actually will impact the players, but that'll be something fun for the Baltimore fans to get into the game.
Yeah, I think most of the players weren't alive when that happened,
Yeah.
I don't know about that. And like, it didn't impact it last year when the Colts Ravens went into Indianapolis. That was like one of the most frustrating games. I remember having the Colts and the Ravens it felt like they won a fluky game. And that was the Phillip Rivers, and Carson Wentz, if he's healthy, is an upgrade over Phillip Rivers was what he was last year, at least. So maybe that's another thing. Maybe you're right about revenge, but not because of the move, but because of what happened last year.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Let's get to our survivor picks. I'll show you what you have. So, if you want to consider it. So you have the Niners, Broncos, Cardinals, then the Bills. So your picks coming up. My survivor pick for this week is Minnesota. I had trouble deciding between 3 teams: Minnesota, New England, and Tampa Bay. And it feels like Tampa Bay and New England have easier paths to a victory. But it's so close. It was close enough for me, and I don't like to save teams, but it was close enough for me to look ahead and see if I could use these teams again. The Buccaneers, you can obviously use almost any week, and they're going to host they hosted the Falcons already. They're going to host some bad teams later in the year, and you can even take them in Atlanta. The Patriots in 2 weeks host the Jets, so that's an easy pick. The Vikings don't have an easy game unless you count the final week against the Bears, and who knows what's going to happen by then. So I'm taking Minnesota, but you can go either of those directions. As I said earlier, I would not take Arizona. That's my trap game of the week. I just feel like they could just be flat, and the Niners could pull the upset out of nowhere. So I'm taking Minnesota. So who do you have this week?
I'm going with the Patriots. I can't envision a world in which Belichick loses a 4th game, drops to 1-4 against the Texans. Not while they're starting a rookie quarterback. I think I'll just roll with the Patriots here. I don't mind your Vikings pick, but I just get a little nervous picking the Vikings to do anything. I almost never pick them in actual survivor. They always are penciled in as one of the teams I will pick late in the year because I like to lay out what I think my strategy is going to be. But yeah, New England is my pick this week.
That makes sense. Yeah, the Patriots could definitely be the pick, and I could see your concern about the Vikings, and I had that as well. But then I saw that the Lions are going to be missing Frank Ragnow, and if maybe if Trey Flowers comes back, I might change my pick later in the week. I'll announce it on the site. But right now, if they have Flowers out, Jamie Collins is gone. They lost Aquara / Mayo, whatever that guy's name is. Then they don't have Decker, they don't have Ragnow anymore. It just seems like this team is just kind of a husk, and the Vikings are coming off a loss. So I think they're going to be motivated. If the Vikings are coming off a win, I could see them being flat, but coming off a loss at 1-3, I think they need to win this game, and I think it's an easy game for them. But I understand your concern there. I was also looking at a teaser for this week, and I think I came up with one. So let me post it real quick. It is here we go. Redskins +8, Browns +7.5. What I like to do is go through 3, 6, and 7 either way. I usually like going lower to higher. It just feels like most people aren't on that. And I think like the Redskins, I feel like aren't going to be blown out by the Saints. Like I can't see Jameis Winston winning a blowout game. Like I know he beat the Patriots by 2 touchdowns and the Packers, but those are kind of fluky games, and I think Washington should keep it close. And then I'd be shocked that the Chargers beat the Browns by more than 8. So I think that's a good teaser.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think both of those feel like they're going to be within a touchdown. So I like that idea.
Yeah. Okay. So that is about it for this week. Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I will post my favorite picks of the week on there, along with my best bets over at Sporting News, which includes picks against the spread, over-unders, some other player props and stuff that I will decide on probably tomorrow. So keep an eye out for those. I will also be writing a lot about the Bills-Chiefs game, so maybe we'll see if that changes my opinion on what might happen in that game. If not, that'll be our big showdown of the week. But yeah, if you follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker, I'm always talking about football in some way, shape, or form there. So yeah, follow me on, and let's continue having fun this season.
Looking forward to it. I'm curious to see if you're going to change your opinion on that game, because like you said, that is our big disagreement for the week. I'm at walterfootball.com. Plenty of draft content on the site. Charlie updated his quarterback rankings. He'll be updating his mock draft later in the week on Friday. My mock draft will be updated Wednesday. Plus, as I mentioned, pick updates throughout the week, Thursday, Saturday, and then Sunday morning. Saturday is the big one. So check back for that. If you're in the fantasy, I have fantasy rankings, start, sit, etc. So tons of content on walterfootball.com. So yeah, once again, hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the merch store in the description. All that would be awesome. But otherwise, I'll talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good.